900 goals. Whoever would have believed it? Welcome to NHL Wraparound Short Shifts for Friday, November 7th, 2025. Your partners in crime, Vic and Neil with you. It is absolutely unfathomable that we ever would have seen this number reached.
I think there's something that's even more unfathomable that you have done in creating your own milestone.
Well, now that you mention it, before we get to Alexander Ovechkin, remember last month, my 149 consecutive solve streak for Wordle? It ended the same day. My wife turns around and gets that word on the first try.
Yeah, I mean, that was embarrassing.
It was a hard day for me.
I can imagine.
Nonetheless, on Thursday, I got a 1 for the first time using the word guise, Guise, and I think there have been over 1,600 Wordle games, and I just keep using the same word every day, thinking at some point it was going to come up, and it came up.
See, you fooled them guys.
I certainly did. Now, I have a brand new word that I'm working with, and hopefully at some point it takes less than 1,600 days for it to come up. But we digress, for sure. On Wednesday evening, Alexander Ovechkin, after 4 goalless games, finally reaches the 900 goal mark. A blind backhander on a rebound from the lower right wing circle at 2:39 of the second period. And what's so amazing about this is you think about the number of one-timers and slap shots from all over the ice, and his 900th goal comes on a shot that he's not even looking at the net against Jordan Binnington.
Yeah, who, by the way, was the goaltender for Team Canada in the Four Nations tournament and did such a great job of literally standing on his head for them, but gets scored on with this goal. And then, if not crazy enough, Binnington actually sticks that puck into his hockey pants, and the linesman has to come and discuss it with him and get him to give it back so that they can put it in wherever it's going, the Hockey Hall of Fame or wherever.
You know very well that there's cameras everywhere. I mean, you've got cameras on ordinary games, and this one potentially had historical significance attached to it. So there's ISO cams everywhere, and he certainly was caught, and TNT played it right back coming out of the commercial. And as you'd said, linesman Michel Cormier came over, had Binnington give up the puck. Now, Binnington says he was going to turn the puck over anyway. So do we give him the benefit of the doubt here?
Oh, I absolutely. I mean, nobody could be that stupid to think that they could actually keep that puck. I mean, that would be insanity. But it all adds to the intrigue of the night and the milestone. And just an incredible feat when you think about something that's unfathomable because of the fact that when you saw Wayne Gretzky play and you saw the amount of goals he scored and you thought, there's never going to be another Gretzky. There's never going to be anybody that can score goals at will like he does. And lo and behold, along comes this guy. And here we are 20 years later after him breaking into the league and 900 goals later. And no end in sight.
Was this perhaps the most improbable goal he scored since the one when he was flipping upside down against Brian Boucher, which turned out that was his 31st career goal? Who knew that we were going to have 869 more after that?
Yeah, that's right. You know what? In 900 goals, I'm sure he's scored a lot of goals that have been lucky, that have been random, that have been where he was the last guy to touch the puck, but somebody else actually knocked it into their own net. I'm sure that every way you could possibly score a goal, he scored one within those 900.
I'm going to give props to Kenny Albert here also, because on the call, he said that ALex Ovechkin is the first player to reach 900 goals. He didn't say 900 goal club. There's no club. You've got to have multiple people to have a club. So in terms of 900 goals, there's no club. There's not going to be a club for many, many years, if ever. So just want to get that little piece out there.
Well, did somebody actually say 900 goal club?
I believe I heard John Walton on the Caps radio say it.
Well, that is a very lonely club.
It's no club. There's nobody else there.
That's right. So it's a lonely club. If you're saying that he's in a 900 goal club, that's like saying I belong to a country club, but I'm the only member.
Yes, but as I said, there's got to be multiple people, such as the 500 goal club, which actually has 49 members, the latest being John Tavares, who scored his 500th in Columbus on October the 29th. He was honored before the Leafs game against Utah on Wednesday, and he scored his 501st goal. It was the go-ahead goal in the third period as Toronto beat Utah 5-3. And another member of a club, Nazem Kadri of the Calgary Flames, scored a goal in his 1,000th career game, a 5-1 win for the Flames over Columbus, and that takes care of Milestone Wednesday.
And Nazem Kadri's had quite a career when you think about him starting off in Toronto, a Toronto boy that broke in with his hometown Toronto Maple Leafs, ended up being traded to Colorado where they won the Stanley Cup, and then goes on to sign as a free agent with the Calgary Flames. And this game happened in Calgary, which was great. His whole family was there. They were shown many times on TV. What a proud time for him and his family. You know, a boy of Lebanese descent playing in the National Hockey League and being able to play 1,000 games. And not only just play 1,000 games, but be a significant contributor in those 1,000 games. And congratulations to him.
And let's see if he winds up finishing the season in Calgary, because if the team continues to struggle, you got to think that there are going to be clubs that really want his goal-scoring touch and his edge come playoff time.
Well, yes, and again, thinking that Nazem Kadri would want to leave Calgary, does he have a no move? We don't know that. I mean, we don't have it in front of us. We could find it out. But it'll be a combination of what the Flames want to do for their future and what Kadri wants to do for his future. But he's the one that picked Calgary to sign in the first place. So, you know, maybe he's been with 2 Canadian teams now. Maybe he likes playing in Canada. Who knows?
And a Stanley Cup winner with the Colorado Avalanche in 2022. Other notables from Thursday. Let's tip our hat to some veterans here. Sidney Crosby, 2 power play goals in the first period of a 5-3 win over the Washington Capitals. And we're going to discuss that game a little bit more in a few minutes. It was the 99th all-time meeting with Ovechkin. Crosby is tied for the goal-scoring lead in the NHL with 11, along with Cutter Gauthier of Anaheim. Just continues to amaze.
He does. Those 2 power play goals were the first 2 goals of the game. He is amazing when you think about it. Just to put Sidney Crosby into perspective, he wears number 87 because he is born in 1987. So that gives you an idea of how old he is. We're in 2025, so he's 2 years away from being 40 at this point. And just is phenomenal athlete, phenomenal ambassador. We talked about it on the last show. My thoughts on him and Ovechkin. Great ambassadors, great statesmen for the National Hockey League.
And makes $8.7 million per year to match that 87. 3 other guys we want to point out here as well. Nikita Kucherov, 2 goals and an assist in the third period as the Lightning overcome a 2-0 early deficit in Vegas to win 6-3 in that game. Anthony Cirelli left with an upper body injury, but the team is hopeful that he can play Saturday against Washington. But good job by Kucherov picking up the mail, and a big win for the Lightning as they continue to surge. And in Los Angeles, Brad Marchand, 2 goals. He has 9 on the season, and the Panthers 5-2 win in LA. And in that game for the Kings, Corey Perry scored his 6th goal. So you just can't keep the elder statesman down in this league, can you?
No, and I mean, Brad Marchand is quite a story because there was a lot of people that said when Marchand got traded from Boston to Florida Panthers at the deadline last year, well, he's really slowed down. I don't know how good he'll be. Well, he was unbelievable in their Stanley Cup run, and he's picked up right where he left off and is playing great for them this season. Corey Perry, I mean, as much criticism as Ken Holland took for signing people like CC and others, Corey Perry has been really good for the LA Kings, was a smart signing, even though he's an elder statesman. But he's won a Stanley Cup with Anaheim. He's been MVP of the league. And he's been in the finals how many years in a row now? I mean, it's
5 out of 6.
5 out of the last 6 years he's played in the final. He is a unique guy. If you stop and talk about him for a minute, the other guys we're talking about, when we talk about Ovechkin, we talk about Crosby. Kucherov isn't really of that same age group, but, you talk about
32.
Marchand. These guys are still playing where they played during their whole career, and meaning on the lines that they played on the power plays that they played on. Yeah. Corey Perry has reached a part of his life, his career, where he's gone from being the number one guy to go out there for the power play, the number one guy to do everything for the Anaheim Ducks. And slowly, he's found his way into being a utility player that goes out whenever he's tapped on the shoulder, and that's not as often as it used to be. And yet he's accepting of that and still wants to keep playing. And he's a very unique guy in that sense, because most of those very high-end players that start off as high-end in the beginning of their career never accept going down in stature on their teams and their career ends. Corey Perry's had a long career because he's accepted the fact that he's changed, the game has changed, and he just goes along with it.
The adaptability is really something. And I want to go back now to Marchand for a second, because I think the importance of him on the Panthers this season with his 9 goals already cannot be overstated with Alex Barkov and Matt Tkachuk being absent from the lineup. Maybe Tkachuk comes back in December, but his contribution is what's keeping Florida right in the race right now until they can start getting some bodies back.
And I want to mention something else too. Marchand gets those 2 goals last night in the Panthers win in LA, got pretty badly beaten by the Anaheim Ducks, came in to the LA Kings arena, and Crypto.com, I know, ended up scoring 2 goals for them as an older player. So, you can't say enough about them. But I did tell you yesterday when I said that I was going to go with the Florida Panthers in this game, I didn't think that Paul Maurice would let them lose both games in LA. That's why I banked on the Florida Panthers.
And they did not. I just want to bookend this segment of veterans by going back to Crosby and Ovechkin, because their 21-year NHL careers, 1/3 of all of the players that have played in the history of the National Hockey League have played at a time that Crosby and Ovechkin have spanned their careers.
That's amazing. That is an amazing stat, but they've been around a long time, and it's still brilliant. It's still brilliant, but I mean, that's an amazing stat.
And credit to ESPN for that one, airing it on that Penguins-Capitals game on Thursday. Next chunk here, we're going to continue with the Penguins here. Teams continuing to prove that they belong. The Penguins blow a 3-0 lead in that game to the Capitals for the second consecutive game. Remember, they had done that against Toronto on Monday, blowing 3-0 lead in the third period, losing 4-3 for the Leafs. But in this one, they had a 3-0 lead. Caps came back with 3 in the second, and it appeared that the Penguins settled down. Going into that third period, they had the intermission to regroup, and they wind up with the win. Let's look at some of the stats for the Penguins. Number 1 overall power play. We mentioned Crosby had the 2 power play goals in the first period, 35.9%. And remember 2 years ago, The club had a 13-game power play goal-scoring drought. That was during the 23-24 season.
It's incredible what has turned their power play around. I got to say something here, too. For all the accolades that Mike Sullivan gets for those 2 Stanley Cups, and he's on every time the American team, there's a Team USA American team from the NHL, he's the coach. It doesn't look very good on him. His power play was horrible while he was running the Penguins, and they can't make the playoffs the last 3 years. Now he goes off to the Rangers. The Rangers can't score a goal at home. They can't win games. And the Penguins are doing well. So I there's no judgment being passed here. That's all just facts.
You know that we're very fair on this show, and that if a team or a player is underperforming, we say so. If a team or a player is doing well, we say so. And we're not afraid to eat crow when the situation calls for it. Erik Karlsson, and Lord knows, we have been all over this guy's ass for the better part of the last year and a half. He has simplified his game. Overall, much sounder. He is a +6 this season after a -24 last year. So I think that's something we've got to acknowledge as well.
Absolutely. And when I've watched the Penguins play, I thought that Karlsson has played very well and played a lot different than he usually plays, which is completely carefree of the defensive responsibilities.
How about the Anaheim Ducks? Scoring 7 goals for consecutive games. They did so earlier in the week against Florida. And again last night in a 7-5 win in Dallas. They have accomplished that number 4 times in 13 games. They lead the NHL with 55 goals, 5 straight wins overall. Chris Kreider, 2 more goals. He's up to 9. And every game that the Ducks prevail and they get a little bit more space, a little bit more distance in the Pacific Division, better off they are. Next 3 games, Vegas on Saturday, home against Winnipeg Sunday, and at Colorado next Tuesday. This team continues to show that they can answer the bell.
They do, and it's an incredible turnaround when you think about it. It's just an incredible turnaround. We did say they'd be better. We did say to look out for them, but this is a marvelous start, and Joel Kenville has to get the credit, some of it, as the coach for turning this team around, along with the Kreiders and so on. But Pat Verbeek deserves the most credit for putting this all together, and we'll see if it continues. But it sure looks like the Ducks are going to be a playoff team this year.
9-3-1 record, .731 winning percentage, is second in the National Hockey League. Let's see if they can keep it going, as is the case in Boston, where the Bruins, after starting 3-0-0, lost their next 6. Now they have won 5 straight and 6 of 7 after a 3-2 overtime win over Ottawa on a goal by Pavel Zacha with 6 seconds left in OT. Morgan Geekie with his 10th. Marco Sturm, good job behind the Bruins bench.
I don't think there's many people out there that gave the Bruins a hope in hell this season, but Marco Sturm
including us.
Including us, yeah. But Marco Sturm seems to be getting as much as he can out of these guys, and we'll see if they can keep it up.
Let's hit a couple of other items. If you're watching the Montreal Canadiens play, it's a good chance you're going to get some bonus hockey because they have played 4 straight overtime or shootout games and 7 in their first 14 this season. They had a 3-2 lead late in New Jersey on Thursday. They got tied by Timo Meier with 67 seconds left in regulation. And Jesper Bratt got the overtime winner against Jakub Dobeš, who saw his perfect 6-0-0 start go away. So Canadians continue to pick up points, but one that they clearly left on the table on Thursday in Jersey.
Yeah, and that was some odd goals being scored there, too. New Jersey took the lead 1-0. The Habs tied it up very quickly, but the shot by, I think it was Kirby Dach, who ended up with the credit for the goal. went way, way up in the air. Nobody knew where the puck was and bounced down behind the goaltender and into the net. I think Doc actually got credit because it hit him in the chest. So weird goal. That wasn't the end of the scoring, though. That was the end of the scoring in the first period, but then they went on to get a lot more after that. And as you said, Jersey came out on top.
I want to hit on this Western Conference item because while the Nashville Predators are not shopping Steven Stamkos, at least they say that they're not, is this marriage souring pretty quickly here? Because in their 3-1 loss to Philly last night, Stamkos not on the score sheet. He's got 2 goals and an assist and a -6 in 16 games after coming off a mediocre season in 24-25 where he did score 27 goals after a pretty rough start but finished at a -36. He's in the second season of a deal that pays him $8 million a year. Overall, it's a 4-year contract. He's got a full no movement. But at this point, Nashville might be one of the most nondescript teams in the National Hockey League. Is this a situation where GM Barry Trotz perhaps approaches Stamkos if things continue to go south or sideways for the Predators and say, hey, you've got the NMC in your deal, but are you willing to go somewhere else so we can continue to try a rebuild here?
Well, I don't know. Are they continuing to try to do a rebuild, or are they going to start to do a rebuild? Because you don't start a rebuild with veterans that they signed last summer, a year ago. But anyway, I think at some point they're going to have to say to Stamkos, do you want to stick around here or do you want to move on? Because it certainly isn't working for us. And Vic, as unthinkable as it is if his season keeps going the way it's going, I wouldn't be surprised that they'd buy him out at the end of the 2 years, because it's a negative.
It is remarkable that just over a year ago, this was the sexy team in the NHL. They signed Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault, Brady Shea. They were the ones that a lot of people picked to not only make the Stanley Cup final, but even win it. And it's quite a story that this has gone this south this quick.
I can't imagine that Barry Trotz feels really comfortable in Nashville with the way things have gone. I like Barry very much. He's a good guy, obviously a great coach. Hasn't worked out as well for him once he put on the GM hat.
Let's hit something positive here, and we're going to go to the youth of the NHL to do that. Number 1 overall pick, certainly playing like it right now. Macklin celebrating number 1 overall pick in 2024. Goal and 2 assists. And the Sharks 6-1 win in Seattle on Wednesday. He enters the weekend atop the NHL scoring race with 21 points alongside Jack Eichel and Connor McDavid. Those Sharkies, 5-6-3, Mr. Smith.
Those poor Sharkies. They're finally starting to win some games. No, then you can't predict a loss every time you see the Sharks on the ice. However, the other thing is, don't forget, these guys started the season horribly. Don't you remember their coach saying, I'd give up one of my children for a win? All of a sudden, they have caught a little bit of lightning in a bottle, and they're playing a lot better. And a lot of the credit is going to Celebrini and Will Smith and Michael Misa, the number 2 pick in this year's draft. So the Sharks are a fun team to watch.
Remember, they were the last team in the league to win a game this year. So Pretty good turnaround. Also, Connor Bedard, number 1 overall pick in 2023, goal and an assist, the 5-2 win in Vancouver on Wednesday. He is a +7 this year, averaging 21 minutes and 15 seconds of ice time. And the thing I want to point out here is the goal came on an empty net, on an assist from Spencer Knight, your breakout goalie of the year. But the point here, even though this was a 2-goal lead at the time, Jeff Blashill had Bedard out in a defensive situation to finish this game. And I think that this is a key component in terms of trying to round his game out further, because his defensive deficiencies were well noted in his first 2 seasons. And it appears that now he is starting to become a little bit more of a 200-foot player.
Well, and he's a couple of years older now, too. He's been in the National Hockey League now for 2 full seasons. So, yes, and give Jeff Blashill the proper credit. He was on NHL Wraparound and talked about how excited he was to coach these young guys, and he's doing a hell of a job with them. We've hit on the 2 teams that were certainly cellar dwellers for the last few years, the Sharks and the Blackhawks, and both of them look like they're making strides this season. Are they playoff teams? Probably not. But have they made strides? Absolutely.
And you could see the enthusiasm both at the Shark Tank and the United Center. So, other personnel news. Jordan Kyrou was scratched for the first time in his career on Thursday. He'd been pointless in his last 4 games. The Blues bounced back in the second night of a back-to-back. They had lost 6-1 in Washington on Wednesday. They get a 3-0 win in Buffalo. Joel Hofer with a 28-save shutout. So whatever message head coach Jim Montgomery was trying to send to his team, and the Kyrou specifically, it certainly got through.
And if you're the Buffalo Sabres and you're that team that's trying to be like Detroit, trying to be like Ottawa, trying to be like Columbus, trying to climb out of that bubble and try to get into the wild card at least and make the playoffs, if you're Lindy Ruff, you got to be pulling what little hair you have out of your head, because how do you let this St. Louis Blues team come in on the second night of a back-to-back, fly out of Washington, D.C., fly into Buffalo the night before, and they shut you out in your own building? It's unthinkable, and you've got to be going nuts. And the backup goalie, Joel Hofer, gets the shutout. This isn't Binnington, who played, as we talked about earlier, for Team Canada. This is Joel Hofer, and he was able to shut out the Buffalo Sabres. So I don't know. If you're in Buffalo, you got to be going nuts.
You got a full froth going on this one.
That's right. You know me with back-to-backs.
No, I know you very well with back-to-backs. And a personnel note coming out of Buffalo Friday morning. According to Lindy Ruff, Captain Rasmus Dahlin will be taking a temporary leave of absence to deal with a personal matter back in Sweden. Dahlin has informed the club that everything is okay, and Ruff has added that the Sabres are offering their full support to their captain. Let's talk the Minnesota-Carolina game here for a second, because defenseman for the Hurricanes, Jalen Chatfield, left Thursday's win over the Wild after a hit to the head by Tyler Pitlick, which earned him a match penalty. Captain Jordan Staal for the Hurricanes went right after Pitlick, and this was one of these situations where you see a hit, and we've talked many times that a player should not have to answer for a big hit. But this was a high hit. It was a dangerous hit. And I think Staal made completely the right call going after Pitlick. By the way, that was Staal's first fight in the NHL since February of 2017. And for Carolina, they got AndreMiller back after missing 6 games. They're still without Jacob Slavin and Shane Gostisbehere. And chances are pretty good that they may lose Chatfield as well. So Rod Brind'Amour has still managed to work well with this team, despite the fact that his defense has really been decimated early in the season.
Yeah, they've done a real good job of, playing by committee and overcoming that. Jordan Staal, first fight in almost 9 years. Almost 9 years. And obviously he felt the hit was that egregious. He's pretty calm, cool, and collected, Jordan Staal is. Not a live wire guy. So it must have been a hit that they deemed was dirty by Tyler Pitlick, and we'll see what the league has to say about it later today.
Ironically, aside from a double minor high sticking penalty by Logan Stankhoven late in the first period, there were no penalties in the second and third. So a game that started out pretty edgy ended up quiet. But the noise in this game started pretty early. 7 goals in the first 12 shots of the game. The game ended up 4-3. And no goals in the last 39 shots against Freddie Anderson and Philip Gustafson.
I know, it was crazy. I watched that game, and I think they scored 3 goals on 4 shots. They did the Carolina Hurricanes.
Right.
So, it was crazy how it went. And yet the goalie didn't get pulled. He stayed in, and John Hines left him in there, and they kept going. And now that team gets to go to UBS Arena tonight to play the Islanders on a back-to-back.
Guess we know how you'll be picking.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a tough one. Back-to-backs are tough on teams.
We're not done with the Wild because you remember that controversial ending to their game against Nashville where Marcus Johansson scored against Justus Ananen with a displaced net in overtime to give the Wild that win. So I texted Dave Jackson and we went back and forth yesterday, and he was okay with the ruling, and his rationale was that one team is going to be pissed off one way or another, depending on what the ultimate call was from Toronto on this. And he figured you might as well tick off the team that causes the controversy to begin with. But I think the reality here, for me at least, was the definition of continuation of play. And I think you and I are in agreement here that when Johansson took his first shot and it hit the side of the displaced net, that was probably the end of play continuation. And he actually took the rebound off of the net and then slid it over the goal line after that. But I think the play should have ended there.
Oh, the play should have definitely ended. It's anybody that watches that's been around for a while would say that shouldn't count.
But it did. Any other updates from you?
No, sir. Nothing from this end.
I appreciate you calling me sir anyway. Games I'm looking forward to this weekend: on Friday, Winnipeg at San Jose, and then the Sharks host Florida on Saturday. So pretty good test on back-to-back nights. See if San Jose can actually get to 500 or even above. NHL math. Saturday, Boston and Toronto, Hall of Fame game. Islanders at the Rangers. And remember we had said we were tired about talking about Ovi and when is he going to get to 900? Will this be the night the Rangers finally win their first game in Madison Square Garden?
And are they even going to score a goal? That's the first question. Will they score a goal? Sorokin will be playing in goal in that game, by the way, for the New York Islanders. So we'll see if the Rangers can get a puck past Ilya Sorokin.
David Reddick playing for the Isles against the Wild in the game you'll be attending on Friday evening. Also on Saturday, Colorado at Edmonton and Anaheim at Vegas. And then the Ducks come home on Sunday to meet the Winnipeg Jets. So again, as we mentioned earlier in the show, we're going to see if the Ducks can keep their winning ways going. Also, another game that I'm looking at on Sunday is Carolina at Toronto. That'll wrap up our show for today. Don't forget to subscribe. Our website, NHLWraparound.com, New York Centric, has a piece by Patrick Hoffman talking about Jacob Markstrom and the confidence that he has gotten from his 2-year contract extension. Neil's Nuggets and Smith's picks. What do you got to say for yourself there, bucko?
2-3 last night, 2 wins and 3 losses on the 5 picks. So I got to do better tonight. But last night was a bunch of games. Well, you know what? Every night in the league this year, it's really hard to pick a winner because there's so much parity. We've talked about the Eastern Conference. It's crazy how close it is. And the teams are very close. It's hard to decide. Tampa Bay last night going into Vegas, would you ever think that, that Tampa could go in there and get the win? And they did. And they did it in a come-from-behind fashion, as we talked about earlier. These things are really difficult to pick, and sometimes you even get lucky like I did on a couple of them, but a lot of times it goes the other way.
You were 2-3 on Wednesday and Thursday, but I think the thing with you that keeps your head above water here, when you win, you're going 4-1 and 3-1-1. And on nights that you have a losing record, you're only going one below 500. So you keep making that margin. So make sure that you're checking out Neil's picks, not only for Friday, but Saturday, Sunday, and every night during the course of the NHL season. Exclusive content only on NHLWraparound.com. Short Shifts returns on Monday, and NHL Wraparound next Wednesday, November the 12th, will be joined by Utah Mammoth General Manager Bill Armstrong. Enjoy the hockey this weekend, everybody.